And we'll have to see if any of the men who are coming up here in event 4 can beat that time of 15:27.41. One more look at the event, and again, it was inspired by that up and back chipper in 2012.
Yeah, you know, and this particular type of, especially with these movements, this particular type of workout is brutal because, you know, obviously you get a taste of it going that other direction, only to know that you have to do that same work again, but under more fatigue, you know, under more duress. And it's one of those kind of cruelly programmed workouts that I think everybody started to kind of, I guess, program more after we saw it pop up in 2012.
Volunteers here at the Mayhem Classic are all out on the floor getting things situated for the first of 4 heats of event 4. The second event that we will do today, we have 1 more remaining and then 2 more on Sunday. Here are your lane assignments, just 5 men in the field here. Take that back, this is the real one. This is now the heat assignments for the first heat. And in lane number 2, Kyle Bernier.
Yeah, right now, Kyle sitting in a pretty good position inside the top 10. Strong performance this morning. He's out of CrossFit Passion in Alpharetta, Georgia. That's where Travis Mayer trains out of, so good opportunity for him to be the next guy out of that training think tank.
All right, first heat of event number 4, the 4th of 7 scored events here at the Mayhem Classic is underway. And we begin with the 25 Burpee Box Get Overs. Throw down scoring ribbon at the top of your screen. 185 scored repetitions in this event.
You're seeing some athletes kind of hop up and get their whole foot on top. I think you'll see that change over time as they get tired. Some athletes, you can just kind of jump up to your knee, pivot off that knee, and turn back around. It's almost kind of some unnecessary movement, if you will, to try and put the entire foot on top.
And Kyle Bernier in the middle of your screen. Just saw him. Then on the far side of the floor, that's Austin Spencer with no shirt on and a headband. And Brendan Willis, who is the overall leader after the first event. He is on the far right of the screen. And Brendan Willis, after event number 3, he took 30th place, so he has dropped down to 8th place overall. Kyle Bernier, as your Tommy said, has moved up to 7th place overall. So Brendan Willis had a really good day 1, but his day number 2 is not off to a good start. It's Kyle Bernier, Hunter Holyfield, and Mitch Spute. They are all fighting for the top spot here. At 25 reps here, then they will move on to the 50 calories on the assault bike. Spute and Bernier continue to trade the lead as we approach the 2-minute mark. Bernier's judge on the left of your screen, her hand is in the air.
And it's really important for Willis and Bernier to try and get another top finish here because they're already roughly 70 points back of Josh Miller, who would be in line to get the invite in first overall. So, like I said, there's only a handful of events today, only a few tomorrow. You don't have much time to make up ground if you're that far back.
Mitch Spute first to the bike. Brendan Willis is behind him. Colton Mertens is getting on the bike as well. Hunter Holyfield on the left of your screen. He was also to the bike. They will get 1 rep for every 10 calories. So at the 30 rep mark, they will then move on to the 50 Ghd Sit Ups. Hunter Holyfield on the left of your screen. He was one of the first men on the bike, as was Brendan Willis, who just left your view. Austin Spencer there, now Colton Mertens. All working through these 50 calories.
Everything's relatively tied up to this point, and this is where I think actually we get a good piece of information from watching the good dudes. I think the crux of this workout is going to be towards the middle, that those 100 GHDs that you have to turn right around on after the bar muscle ups. Who is really efficient through that movement and back to the bike? Similar to that middle round of the heavy dumbbell that we saw earlier today.
Mitch Spute is your leader. He's through 20 calories. Again, a rep for every 10 calories. And Branden Willis and Spute are on the same pace. Mertens also there as well. So no one has yet to separate himself from the pack here in the early stages of event number 4. Rich Froning's time that we just saw, 15:27.41. So just doesn't have any bearing on this, but just keep that in mind.
Just a little carrot to dangle out there for everyone to chase. And oh yeah, that carrot just happened to be the 4-time fittest man on earth.
If you ever beat Rich Froning in an event, I feel like you should have that put on a t-shirt and you should wear it around always. I tell Bill Grundler that all the time. He beat Rich and Diane way back during, I think it was 2012 at the regionals. And I told him, you should just wear that on a shirt all the time.
I would have that in one of those banners that hangs from your wall.
I mean, yes. I'd take out a billboard.
Yep.
Mitch Spute, Hunter Holyfield, Branden Willis, Austin Spencer, your top 4. And Austin Bolin also there as well. About 4.5 minutes gone by. Judge's hand in the air for Mitch Spute. He's on his final 10 calories. And he and Branden Willis, they were on opposite ends of the floor. The two men wearing the black T-shirts, bookending this competition here. And they were the first two to the bike. Now hands going into the air for Kyle Bernier as Mitch Spute will move on to the 50 Ghd Sit-Ups. And he is the only man there. At the 80 rep mark, that is when they will move on to the 25 bar muscle ups. Here comes Kyle Bernier to join Spute on the GHDs.
Look how wide Spute's hands were when he was doing the GHD sit-ups. See how wide they go out to touch? That kind of lowers the amount of tension that you get on that stretch across the midline, right? When you reach out directly overhead, you're lengthening the body, really adding to that kind of stretch reflex for the midline. By doing it out to the side, it takes a little bit of tension off, and especially over the course of 100 reps, it's going to save you a little bit of juice.
Yeah, 185 scored repetitions in this event. So Mitch Spute is through 58 of those. Again, at the 80 rep mark, so now 20 reps to go on the GHD sit-ups. On the 80 rep mark, he will move to the 25 bar muscle ups, and those bar muscle ups are the only movement in this event that they do one time. Kyle Bernier right next to Mitch Spute. Spute's on the far left of your screen. Bernier's right next to him. Those are your top 2. And then Hunter Holyfield, who is in the middle of your screen. He's working through those GHDs. He's the blonde-haired athlete in the black shorts with no shirt. But these are your top 2. Mitch Spute on the left and Kyle Bernier on the right. And Bernier has managed to catch Spute as the two of them are in the final stages of the set of 50.
And they mentioned that technique about touching off to the side to kind of reduce the tension on your midline. I think it's also going to pay dividends on the bar muscle-ups, right? You think about that arch hollow position that you end up going through on the GHD. You're going to have to do that again for the bar muscle-up, except it's going to be the primary driver in your momentum to get up over the bar.
Kyle Bernier, first man to start his set of 25 bar muscle-ups. Mitch Spute is done as well. Austin Bolin is also getting to work on his. And now Hunter Holyfield is making his way to the pull-up bar. So the field has condensed a little bit here as Mitch Spute had the lead going into the GHDs, but now Kyle Bernier has taken that from him, but all these athletes within a couple of reps of each other. Bernier through 88 of the 185 total scored repetitions. At 105, that is when he will be done and make his way back down the floor. And Kyle Bernier there on bar number 2 behind Mitch Spute. 13 to go, now 12 to go before he will return to the GHDs. Kyle Bernier coming into this event in 7th place overall. Started off great on day 1 with back-to-back 4th place finishes and then a 22nd in event 3. So looking to work his way back up the leaderboard here. That is Hunter Holyfield, who now sits in 2nd place behind Bernier by a rep. And Branden Willis has moved into 3rd, followed by Colton Mertens, and now Mitch Spute a bigger athlete, has fallen back into 4th place. Bernier with 5 to go. He is in the background there behind Mitch Spute. Hunter Holyfield has 5 to go, and he stayed on the bar. Bernier back to work. So Holyfield and Bernier now are the 2 athletes fighting for the top spot in this heat. Mitch Spute back to work. He and Colton Mertens are fighting for 3rd as Hunter Holyfield has taken the lead, and he is back to the GHDs where he will complete 50 reps.
And you can just see the effect on the midline there. After that first rep, Holyfield had to take a break, and it almost kind of reset for a second because at this point in the workout, your midline is screaming.
Holyfield in the lead, 111 of the 185 total scored repetitions. Bernier right behind him, and it's Colton Mertens who has made a charge. He sits in 3rd. Willis and Spute fighting for 4th. Spute is in the background there in the black shirt, just hopped off the pull-up bar.
And you can see the difference in pace between Bernier and Holyfield. And maybe even though Holyfield kind of burnt himself out a little bit by hanging on to those last few bar muscle-ups, Bernier is clearly holding a better pace and has already moved forward.
Cam Crockett, he is on the GHDs. He is right next to Hunter Holyfield. He's on the left side, so Holyfield's on the far right. Cam Crockett in those black and red knee sleeves. He is next to Holyfield. And Cam Crockett is one of the men in this competition who has already qualified for the CrossFit Games, courtesy of his 17th place finish in the Worldwide Open. But it's Kyle Bernier, who is second in from the inside, now in the middle of your screen, who is your leader. About a 10-rep lead over Hunter Holyfield. At the 155 mark, that is when he will move on to the assault bike and complete 50 more calories. So Bernier looking to maintain the lead here, and he was really able to do most of his damage on this movement the last time through, and then on the pull-up bar. That's where he made his move, and he's maintained the lead throughout those 2 movements, and now on his way back down the floor.
Yeah, Holyfield got to the GHD probably about 15 seconds ahead of Bernier. And Bernier's already put about 10 to 12 reps between the 2 of them.
Now Bernier is done. 30 scored repetitions to go. Back on the assault bike, he'll get 1 rep for every 10 calories. He'll move when he hits 160 on his scoreboard.
And as pivotal as the GHD and bar muscle portion is to like overall result, I believe, in this workout, this portion right here probably has to be the most painful. Because at this point, there's nothing really holding you back in terms of skill, in terms of loading. It's just the assault bike and get down to the ground and get over that stupid box, for lack of a better term. So then kind of the mental test is what really kind of comes into play at this point of the workout.
Hunter Holyfield and Colton Mertens got onto the bike at the same time. They're on the right of your screen. That's the battle for second place right now. So Bernier has cleared his first 10 calories. Now Cam Crockett onto the assault bike as well. Make that Austin Bolin, I believe. Austin Spencer at the far end of the floor. He's on the assault bike. So only 2 athletes have yet to reach the assault bike, and one of them is Mitch Spute. He's making his way up there now. Spute is in lane number 1, so he just hopped onto the bike. Now Austin Bolin is still on the GHD, so it was Cam Crockett who did move on. And Bernier creeping closer to that 160 rep mark. That's when he will move to the final movement in this up and back chipper, the 25 Burpee Box Get Overs. Branden Willis on the right side of your screen was the guy who came into the day with the overall lead, but lost that after a poor performance in the last event. Kyle Bernier now 7th place overall, coming into this event, looking to move up with a strong performance here.
And before the workout started, we said he's the one that's in the best position to try and make a move and catch some points up on Josh Miller, who right now is in line to get the invite. And so far, so good. Pretty much from the turnaround point, once we got to those GHDs, he's kind of taking control. And he's on his last 10 calories. I don't know if he's going to catch Rich, but it's still going to be a strong performance.
The Rich's time, again, that has no bearing on this competition other than a head scratch that's kind of interesting. 15 minutes, 27.41 seconds. So a minute and a half to go before we hit that. Bernier, though, more concerned about what's going on the floor around him right now, as he is the leader in this first of 4 heats.
But I do think in this event, in the very least, using that time as kind of an anchor, right? If I can get in around that time that Rich put up, even though it has no bearing, I can kind of safely assume that for the 3 more heats that are going to go on behind us, that's going to set you up pretty well.
The Bernier is done, and now 25 burpee box get overs, 48 inches on that box. Colton Mertens is in second, followed by Hunter Holyfield, and Branden Willis is towards the front here. That's good news for him. After he fell out of the top spot in the last event, Willis now sitting in 8th place overall, 190 total points. Bernier, the only man on the final movement. Again, Rich Froning, 15:27, and now Colton Mertens has moved to the burpee box get overs. Mertens moving at a really good pace.
Really good pace.
Mertens is a guy with some games experience under his belt. In 2018, he went to the games on a team, member of CrossFit Kilo. Now Hunter Holyfield working his way to the burpee box get overs. And Cam Crockett, he started his as well. He is in the background, just crawling over the box in the middle of your screen. But Kyle Bernier, upper left-hand part of your screen, he is still your leader. 185 scored repetitions. So Bernier with 12 to go before he hits that, then he'll make his way across the finish line, looking to set the early time to beat here with just 3 heats remaining. So a lot of work needs still to be done. But Bernier putting up a really solid score here in event 4. Here comes Mitch Spute. Just saw him walk in front of the camera. He was one of the early leaders, but Kyle Bernier took the lead at the turn of this event and has held on to it since. Colton Mertens is starting to put a little pressure. He's on the upper part of the screen. Now right part of the screen, Mertens in the all black, and he's only a couple reps behind Bernier.
Bernier's going to have to hustle here. You saw him kind of slumped over, resting at the box a second, while Mertens has been able to maintain a pretty blistering pace.
And Mertens now just a rep back of Kyle Bernier and threatening to catch him. Bernier on the left, Mertens is on the far right of the screen.
They're even now.
Bernier trying to hold off Colton Mertens, and Mertens will get it done first, and he will take the heat. 16:58.78. Bernier across at 17:01. Late charge from Colton Mertens to set the early time to beat.
He made up around 10 reps on that final set of 25. Really put it on there at the end. Impressive charge by Colton Mertens.
That leaves Hunter Holyfield and Branden Willis to fight now for 3rd place in this heat. 30 seconds before we hit the time cap.
Man. No surprise that Colton Mertens, the guy that finished 9th in 20.1 with all those bar-facing burpees, managed to kind of put some pace on that last set of 25 burpee box jump overs.
Holyfield is in, Branden Willis is in, and Cam Crockett came across as well. We don't have his score listed on the scoring ribbon, but he did get across the finish line, and that is going to do it as Colton Mertens at 16:58.78 seconds is your leader with 3 heats to go. So Mertens was hanging towards the top there. Kyle Bernier had the lead until the final couple of reps, but great charge from Colton Mertens late in this event.
Yeah, you know, it was kind of a mixed bag in terms of getting back to that final set of 25 burpee box overs. Kyle kind of had the lead, but Mertens, it came down to those final few reps where he really kept his pace while Bernier fell off, and ultimately that was what gave Colton the lead.
Fans in the VIP lounge enjoying that performance from Colton Mertens, and the fans in the stands certainly appreciating that as well. Colton Mertens at 16:58.78. Kyle Bernier, I apologize for mispronouncing his name. It's the hockey fan in me. 17:01.30 seconds.
Got all that French Canadian in you.
Hunter Holyfield takes third. So we will reset for our second of 4 heats here in event number 4. Again, an up and back chipper, inspired by the up and back chipper that took place in the tennis stadium at the StubHub Center back in 2012. One that featured burpee ring muscle ups. This one, though, has an assault bike. I don't know which one would be worse.
I'd say the Devil's Tricycle is a little bit worse, Sean.
The 25 bar muscle ups are the only movement that they will do once. So they will go up the floor, then back. 185 total scored repetitions. After watching that the first time, what do you think the worst part of this event is?
I really think they kind of suffer fest between the last 50 calories on the assault bike into those 25 burpee box overs. We saw that's where the overall lead changed in those final 25, where Kyle Bernier was really suffering and Colton Mertens was able to kind of seize control of that particular heat. At that point, it's really just autopilot and how long can you hold on to that pace that you've set for yourself.
Lane assignments for the second of 4 heats, and your overall leader will be in lane number 7, Josh Miller, who's had a spectacular competition so far, has yet to finish lower than 6th in an event.
Yeah, Josh obviously started the weekend strong. He won the first event, which was a portion of that ruck run to the checkpoint, but then he comes back and finishes 3rd in the first event to start this morning, has a sizable lead over the next athlete that doesn't have an invite, Luke Schaefer, in 4th. So right now he's riding pretty high coming into this event.
Second of 4 heats here in event 4 is underway, the 4th of 7 total scored events that we will have here at the Mayhem Classic. The time to beat belongs to Colton Mertens, 16:58.78 seconds, and we start with the 25 burpee box get overs. 185 total scored repetitions in this event. And like we saw in the first heat, everyone pretty even so far in the early stages of this event. We really didn't start to see some significant separation until we got to the pull-up bar.
No, a lot of this is kind of just an exercise in pacing and heart rate management and fatigue management until you get to the crux of the workout on those 25 bar muscle ups into the final set of 50 GHDs.
Saxon Panchik is at the bottom of your screen working through his set. One of the 2 Panchik brothers who are competing here is his brother Spencer, also here, and his brother Scott just took part in the Good Dudes event. So the Panchik's well represented here in Cookeville, Tennessee.
And I bet you both of them were watching Big Brother Scott throw down on that workout just to kind of keep in the back of their mind.
Saxon Panchik is through 18, now 19 of those 25 opening repetitions. Matt Hewitt is your leader right now through 21. After this, it's on to the assault bike for 50 calories. And Branden Swan also towards the front of the pack as well, as just about every judge has his or her hand in the air. Matt Hewitt, he's done on the left of your screen, and he will move on to the assault bike. Branden Swan is finished, and Saxon Panchik is done as well. You think back to regionals in 2018. Saxon Panchik and his brother Scott, I think, had one of the more memorable moments when Scott found out that Saxon made the games and the celebration that ensued from that. Something I'll certainly always remember.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and it showed you the bond that they have between each other. That Scott, even when we've talked to him in various interviews, reflects back on that moment as one of his happiest moments competing, is getting to share the games qualification with his brother. And Saxon has really kind of made the kind of just barely making the cut kind of a habit, because he did that last year at the games. Remember, he needed a big performance in the sprint event to get inside the top 10 before the final cut. You know, and he managed to do that, and he finishes with his first ever top 10 finish at the games.
And remember when Panchik was 11 years old, he and his brother Spencer tried to rescue a 10-year-old girl who had fallen while hiking onto a ledge. Both of them fell. They were left dangling 200 feet above the ground. They both suffered skull fractures, brain bleeds, broken bones. And they loved football at the time, and they told that they would never play football again, and that's what turned them to CrossFit.
And they've certainly taken it and run with it now, obviously becoming one of the, I guess, the foremost families of CrossFit, having two of them already qualified. The other brother, Spencer, kind of on the verge of qualifying as well.
We just saw an empty bike pass through the view there. That is lane 4. That would have been Will Morad. He has withdrawn from the competition.
Real unfortunate. We're being told that it's a back issue. You know, obviously we saw him struggling with the heavy dumbbells pulling from the floor earlier. That kind of makes sense given that the kind of stress that those dumbbells can put on the lower back. Obviously we wish him the best. We hope he heals up, gets healthy, and that, we'll get to see him soon.
The athlete who hits the 30 rep mark will move on first. 1 rep for every 10 calories, 50 calories on the bike. So at the 30 rep mark, they will move on to the 50 Ghd sit-ups.
And very similar to how I said these two implements to start are going to be the worst at the backside of this. You can't really win the workout here, but you can definitely lose it. You go a little bit too fast out the gate in the burpee overs and the assault bike, get the heart rate spiked. You could see someone really, really crash and burn. Almost kind of similar to Mitch Spute in that first heat.
Josh Miller on the right of your screen in the black shirt. His judge's hand was in the air first. Matt Hewitt was next, and then Branden Swan on the far right of your screen was third. Now Saxon Panchik's judge's hand is in the air, and Dylan Martin's judge, his hand just went up. And now Josh Miller, your overall leader through 3 events, on to the GHDs. Matt Hewitt at the opposite end of the floor will start his 50 reps. Well, 80 reps, that is when they will move on to the 25 bar muscle ups.
You can see mid-rep Josh Miller smiling and pointing to the crowd. A few people here in the stands cheering him on.
He's from close by, not too far from here, Spartanburg, South Carolina.
A little bit farther than what Branden Swan had to travel from Australia right next to him. Look at the pace of Matt Hewitt, though. Really kind of blasting through those 50 GHDs.
Josh Miller, though, continues to stay towards the top here in this heat as Matt Hewitt has overtaken him for the lead. But for Miller, we talked about the competition he's had so far. He won Event 1 Part A, finished 6th in Part B, and then took a 3rd earlier today in Event number 3. 266 total points for him. Chandler Smith is the man who sits in 2nd place overall. We'll see him coming up in the final heat. But Chandler Smith has 228 points, so a 38-point lead for Josh Miller at this point in the competition, and he has yet to qualify for the CrossFit Games. So Miller in the driver's seat right now as far as that invite is concerned.
And you can see him taking kind of a second there to kind of unhook from the GHD, shake it out. You saw him patting his legs. Obviously, this puts a ton of tension on the midline too, but if you're being really active in this movement, you're really driving the tops of your feet and ankle into that pad. To pull yourself up as well puts a ton of tension on the hip flexors and quads. And seeing Josh take a moment there to kind of shake it out.
Now Matt Hewitt is first to the 25 bar muscle ups, the 105 mark. At the 105 rep mark, he will move back to the GHDs. The time to beat again belongs to Colton Mertens, 16 minutes, 58.78 seconds, and we're not even halfway to that yet.
And Kyle Bernier, who was actually the first person to the pull-up bar on this last heat, he got there right around 7, which is right when Hewitt got there too, so they're about on the pace that the last heat was.
Tolamora Aquino on the left of your screen. He's also onto those bar muscle-ups as he's gaining some ground here in this heat. Josh Miller, he currently sits in second place, but not by much over Moraquino. Miller on the right of your screen. And Matt Hewitt so far starting to put some distance between himself and the rest of the heat. And this is where we saw it happen in the last heat where someone started to separate himself, and that was Kyle Bernier, but he couldn't hold off Colton Mertens at the end.
Yeah, Bernier just left a little bit too little in the tank there for those final few reps and got passed by Mertens, but still a pretty strong performance.
Matt Hewitt with 7 reps to go, now 6 reps remaining on these bar muscle-ups and moving at a really good clip here. Josh Miller sits in second, followed by Tolamora Aquino, Saxon Panchik, and Branden Swan. Those are your top 5.
And Tola choosing to kind of rip off some big sets. I know he's in 4th right now on the leaderboard, but he's done 10 and 8 for his first 2 sets. I think he might be going 10, 8, 7, split this into only 3.
And he has a lot of work to do. He gained some ground after the last event, took 4th in event number 3. That moved him up to 23rd overall in the point standings here after back-to-back 30th place finishes to start day 1. So he is really behind the 8 ball right now. Matt Hewitt back for his second and final set of 50 GHDs. Here comes Saxon Panchik, who has moved into second ahead of Josh Miller. Matt Hewitt through 118 of the 185 total scored repetitions in this event. Saxon Panchik next to him on the far left of your screen. He is in second. Josh Miller is on the right side of your screen in the black shirt. He had the lead early on in this event, but now trying to hold off Tolamora Aquino for 3rd place in this heat. Time to beat 16 minutes, 58.78 seconds.
And where Hewitt's really picking up ground is the turnaround, right? Most athletes, you kind of get up to the top, you touch the feet, use that position to kind of take a quick breath and reset for the next rep. Hewitt's just diving right down, touch and go, touch and go. Whereas everyone else has kind of been lingering at the top just a little bit. Those little minor pieces over the course of 50 reps really start to add up when you're talking about 8 to 10 seconds that you're gaining on the rest of your competition.
Hewitt creeping closer to the 155 rep mark. That's when he will move on to the assault bike. Saxon Panchik next to him on the bottom left of your screen. It goes Hewitt, then Panchik. Those are your top 2. So Matt Hewitt is done. His rep counter has stopped ticking, but he is through 155 of the 185 total scored repetitions as he hops on the assault bike. Saxon Panchik with 5 reps to go before he will join Hewitt on the assault bike. Hewitt will get a rep credited for every 10 calories he completes. And now here comes Saxon Panchik moving into second. And Saxon coming in 18th place overall. In fact, the 2 of these athletes right next to each other on the overall leaderboard is Josh Miller gets into the assault bike. But Saxon Panchik came in 18th place overall. Matt Hewitt, 19th place overall. Josh Miller, your overall leader, he's on the right side of your screen.
I love that he's taking a second to wave to Mom in the crowd. You can see him cheering over here from where we're standing. Showing a little love to his family along the way.
$160, that's the mark that Hewitt's trying to hit, and then he'll move on to the final set of 25 Burpee Box Get Overs. He's through 20 total calories now. 30 remain for him. Well, Branden Swan is next to Josh Miller. Swan looking to try to take third place in this heat.
He had a little bit of the speed wobbles getting off that GHD. First couple steps carried him into the barrier just outside his lane.
Swan coming into this event in 10th place overall. He's improved with every event. He was 23rd in Part A of Event 1, then 16th in Part 2, then took second in Event 3. 158 total points and inside the top 10 right now. Josh Miller just looking to hang on to the overall lead here. A lot of the men he's most concerned with will be in the next couple of heats. He can afford to surrender points to Hewitt, Panchik, and Swan, but it's Chandler Smith and the guy right behind him on the overall leaderboard that he really needs to be concerned with right now, as far as winning this competition is concerned.
And really the guy he needs to pay attention to for big picture is Luke Schaefer in fourth, who's coming up in that next heat. Luke's the next guy down the leaderboard that doesn't have an invite, but at the moment, Josh is 63 points clear of him, so.
Great first three events for Josh Miller, has put him in solid position right now. Black shirt right side of your screen, he is your overall leader. Matt Hewitt, though, the leader right now in this heat. He is almost done with his 50 calories on the assault bike, just 2 calories to go, and then he will move on to the box for 25 Burpee Box Get Overs. And Hewitt is done. 25 reps remain. Time to beat 16:58.78 seconds. So Hewitt might be on pace to beat that. Saxon Panchik is done. He stays in second place behind Hewitt. And Josh Miller on the upper right-hand part of your screen, his judge's hand is in the air. He is done. He is in third.
And it's just a reference, Kyle Bernier actually got to the box at about the exact same time that Matt Hewitt did, but obviously he trailed off towards the back end of that workout, which allowed Colton Mertens to set the time to beat. But as far as pacing goes up to this point, he's spot on with the previous heat.
Here are your top three. Matt Hewitt on the left. In the middle is Saxon Panchik, and on the right is overall leader in the point standings in this event, Josh Miller. .185 total scored repetitions, and Hewitt is 13 away from that mark. Tolamora Aquino onto the box. Branden Swan as well. Ten reps to go for Hewitt as he is holding off Saxon Panchik, but Saxon has cut into his lead just a little here, as Panchik looks like he's moving at a quicker pace than Hewitt on these box get-overs. So this is the same thing that we saw play out in the last heat with Mertens and Bernier. 16:58.78 seconds, that's the time to beat. Hewitt trying to hold off Saxon Panchik.
Panchik really pouring it on.
Final rep for Hewitt. And he is in, and Matt Hewitt hits the buzzer, and he will have the new top time at 16:32.78.
Impressive push by Panchik at the end, but just maybe a little too late. Ends up a couple of reps shy by the time Hewitt crossed the line.
Saxon Panchik will finish at 16:38. That is now the second best time in this event, as Colton Mertens slides to third. Less than a minute to go before we hit the time cap, and now Josh Miller is in. He will take third in this heat. But again, because of what he did in the first three events, a lot's going to have to go wrong for him over these next couple of heats for him to surrender that lead.
But that's where paying attention to the previous heats comes into play, right? Miller ends up finishing just a little bit behind Colton Mertens from a previous heat. Even though Mertens may not have the top time, he comes into factor when you're looking at the overall standings for an athlete like Josh Miller.
Branden Swan, he's on the far right of your screen. He has a couple reps to go before he can close out his event. Tola Moraquinho as well, as we have 15 seconds to go before we hit the time cap.
Look at Tola just basically clearing the box in its entirety.
So Branden Swan is across. That's good for him as he came in 10th place overall. And Tola Moraquinho gets inside the time cap by about 5 seconds and change, but it's Matt Hewitt who now has the time to beat 16 minutes, 32.78 seconds. Branden Swan emptied the tank to get inside the time cap, but again, same story. Matt Hewitt takes the lead on the turn and then has to hold off a late charge.
Yeah, and this time he was able to hold off that charge, but again, the crux is really those GHDs on either side of the bar muscle-ups. You know, moving efficiently through those really gives you a head start going into the final set of assault bike calories, where really then it's just a sufferfest.
16:32.78 seconds. That is your new time to beat, as Matt Hewitt and Saxon Panchik have quite a battle in that heat. Josh Miller will take third. Branden Swan and Tola Moraquinho, they are the other men to finish inside of that 18-minute time cap, as Martin and Matthew both get capped. And again, Will Morad withdrawing from the competition. Being joined now by the man who still has the top time in this event, 15 minutes, 27.41 seconds, as we take one more look at it. Rich Froning, thank you so much for, first of all, having us here at your gym. Thank you for joining us here in the gym. How are things playing out so far for you with this event?
Good so far. You know, there's some minor details behind the scenes going on. We got a little bit of rain outside. Athlete area got a little bit wet just now. Warm-up area got a little bit wet, but I mean, show looks good. That's really what we want, is, you know, everybody to see what's going on and get these athletes to showcase the work they put in. So I think so far we've done that, and it's been fun to watch.
We take a look at this event description. You've mentioned that this was inspired by that up and back chipper that you did in 2012. What specifically about that event did you like?
You know, it's just kind of what happens is everything kind of compounds on itself as you move down, and you're kind of like almost lulled into a false sense of security when you get to the bar muscle ups. You're like, oh, I'm halfway, but you're not really halfway, because you got to come back through all this horrible stuff again. And you know, the second set of GHDs after doing the bar muscle ups, it's a little devastating. So, man, that second bike is just kind of just a punch in the teeth. But it's good. It's, you know, it's a little bit of a mental test, but like I said, those movements kind of compound on themselves, and you're getting a little bit of muscular endurance. It's a pretty good test, I think.
Drew Wayman getting set to take on this event, looking to improve on what he did in the last event, Tommy.
Yeah, he really needs a bounce-back workout after what happened in the morning's event. He was in one of the top 3 spots coming into today, but a 25th place finish to start the day is not what he wants to happen, you know, at least as far as his overall standing is concerned.
Yeah, Drew coming in at 5th place overall. He is 66 points back of Josh Miller. Third heat underway. How much did you play with this first movement to decide on the height of this box?
We do a lot of these Burpee Box Get Overs, as we call them. You know, it's kind of a movement we kind of stole from, I guess it was 2017 with the hay bale. And it's kind of it almost feels like a burpee bar muscle up, I guess, because you got to push. It's like almost a double press. It's just a good variation. You know, we do so many different types of burpees, so we haven't seen a ton of these in competition other than like 2017, and so it's kind of a staple of some of the programming that we do, and we thought we'd throw them in there in this workout. It really actually adds a little bit of nastiness to those bar muscle ups when you get at the end, because you're push, so you're actually doing a little bit more pressing than you think. So it all adds up as you make your way down and coming back.
Rich Froning joining us here in the booth as we are in the third of 4 heats of event number 4. The time to beat, 16 minutes, 32.78 seconds. 25 repetitions here on the Burpee Box Get Overs to start this competition, and then it's on to the first 50 calories on the assault bike.
Yeah, something to think about here too is like you're seeing some people with the knee up, some people are putting the foot up and over, like Panchik in the earlier heat was crushing those burpee box get overs. There's not a ton of time you can really make up on them unless you're doing something like that. The only thing is, if you're lifting that leg that much higher when you get to those GHDs down there, that little extra hip, activation, I guess, there at the top might add up. So we'll see how that plays out. One of the younger Panchiks earlier did pretty well on that last set of burpee box jump overs or get overs, but GHDs were kind of the difference maker. Hewitt's so efficient at them. It's just that's his movement if you ever had one.
Cole Grayshaber and Conor Duddy are trading the lead here early on. Grayshaber was really impressive in that last event. The 20-year-old went out and finished 8th place in event 3, his best finish of the competition so far. And now it's basically everybody getting to the assault bike at the same time, but Grayshaber was just in the lead there. They will get a rep credited for every 10 repetitions. So at the 30 rep mark, that is when they will move on to the 50 Ghd sit-ups.
This is just kind of control here. You don't want to get too gassed. When we were doing it earlier, you get those jitters and you start going a little too hard and you're looking at those numbers, and usually you want those numbers to creep up. On this one, you want those numbers to creep down a little bit. Start seeing 461. My game plan was like 442, and you're kind of like, slow down, and you just can't really go below 462 to start out, and you kind of pay for it there on the back end. So it's trying to be smart. See right there you want to see those numbers stay relatively the same. For me personally, some of these guys like to crank it, go a little easier, crank it, like you're seeing 420 or 525 right there. That's, oh, never mind, I'm looking at distance, my bad, 409. So yeah, we're good. That's probably a comfortable pace right there, because that second bike is really, like I said, that's where you want to push if you can.
And you can look at either wattage, RPMs. What's usually kind of the gold standard for you as far as?
For me, I like to look at wattage. Personally, that's just kind of what I look at. On this type of a workout, like 50 calories, if I can hold, like I said, 442, 460-ish, because they kind of have those like benchmark numbers that they move to. And on that second set, I was trying to stay at that 425 range, and it started creeping down to 409, and you're kind of like, don't let it go below 400, and you're kind of playing this game where you're, like I said, it's tough. That second set of bike hurts.
Approaching the 4-minute mark here, and it's Conor Duddy, Spencer Panchik, Luke Schaefer, Dylan Pettit, and Cole Grayshaber as you take a look at Drew Wayman. But Spencer trying to duplicate what his brother did in the earlier heat. Saxon putting on a late charge to take second place in the heat that we saw prior to this. But Cole Grayshaber continues to lead at the 30 rep mark. That is when he will move on to the 50 Ghd sit-ups.
Yeah, I feel like kind of, for the top guys and girls, the fitness part of the bike and burpee box get overs, there's not a ton of separation. So you really need to separate yourself on the GHD and the bar muscle up and then back to that GHD. That's kind of the crux of the workout, and the rest of it, I mean, these guys and girls suffer through this type of stuff all the time, but that combination of GHD muscle up is a deadly one. Once they all add up, and it really takes a toll just kind of on your core and your breathing, and then trying to go through all this stuff again. But yeah, I think the real separation happens on the GHD and on the bar muscle up.
Like you said, there's a ton of interference there on the midline. How do you go about kind of picking the right amount in terms of that interference? You obviously want to tax them a little bit, but you want to make sure that you're still able to shine and be capable in that movement. Yeah,
I'm obsessed with numbers when it comes to workouts. It's probably a bad thing when you really look at it, because we don't do any random number. Like, I don't know, I'm a little OCD when it comes to stuff, so everything kind of builds on itself. If you look, we got 25, 50, 50, 25, 50. Like, yeah. It's just the way I am, like that. The Fibonacci, the numbers. Now that I know there's actually something behind that, I guess that can technically work, but in my head it looks disgusting to me.
You're off the hook, Castro.
Yeah, so the girls usually give me crap about, hey, those numbers, so I'll have to play around with the workout just to make it the right number. I mean, like I said, it's a little obnoxious, but it's part of it, I guess.
Cole Grayshaber was the first man to the GHDs. He is through 62 of the 185 total scored repetitions. At the 80 rep mark, that's when he will advance. Drew Wayman was actually second.
Yeah, you see a couple different setups on this GHD. See how far back his hips are? for me personally, I like my feet slid a little bit more forward where my butt's on top of the pad, not in front of the pad because that's illegal, but on top of the pad, I feel like there's less of my body weight that I have to lift up, but some people don't have that thoracic mobility to extend that far. So it's personal preference. For me, though, I feel like right here in, what lane is that?
That's Cole Grayshaber.
Cole Grayshaber.
Yeah.
For me, I would be crushed doing that right there. So I kind of like to be a little bit farther forward, at my feet farther away, I guess. And so it helps.
Grayshaber is being directed to his pull-up bar now. He's the first man to the 25-bar muscle-ups. Now Ben Smith moving on as well, and Drew Wayman. Connor Duddy there as well too, and now Spencer Panchik.
And so far, just like in the last 2 heats, the point where everyone got to the bar muscle-ups is about that 7-minute mark. So we're seeing a lot of these athletes maintain the same pace at least through the first half of the workout. And the difference obviously being, like Rich said, you know, the turnaround into the GHDs, and then how well can you maintain that pace you set for yourself on the first round of the assault bike.
Yeah, you get a little bit of a touch of breathing break, I guess, on the GHDs. I guess it depends on how fast you move. That bar muscle up, though, spikes the heart rate pretty good depending on, you know, how many sets you feel like you're comfortable doing. Do you want to do a big set, take a break, and then hit, you know, a smaller set? For me, I hit the 18-7. It just felt about right for me. You know, some of these guys you'll see go 3 sets, maybe a little bit faster of a rest. It really kind of just depends on how you know, I felt like I could probably try to go 25 on the bar muscle up. However, I knew, you know, coming back and going into that GHD that it probably wasn't the smartest tactic doing that.
That's usually Sean's thought when he does.
Yeah,
bar
you know,
muscle-ups.
just
Take
rip
the
out about
whole
a set
thing
18,
out, you know, right?
just take a quick break, jump up and do 7. I'm good to go.
Less sets, the better, right?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Especially for Sean, you know, us Clydesdales get that
Don't
rig
want to shake
shaking.
that rig too much. Stress test that thing. Connor Duddy is close to finishing up his set of 25. Spencer Panchik sits in second, and then Luke Schaefer on the left hand of your screen. He has moved into third place as Cole Grayshaber on the right has fallen off the lead as Spencer Panchik and Connor Duddy are the first 2 men back to the GHDs. Now Luke Schaefer is there as well. Remember, 185 total scored repetitions in this event, so at the 155 mark is when they will move back to the assault bike.
This is an important push for Luke Schaefer here. Remember, he's the next in line behind Josh Miller as far as games qualification goes. We saw Josh fade a little bit towards the back end of that last heat. Luke can put up a top time, maybe overtake the top spot here, so that's precious points on the leaderboard.
Yeah, Luke's a super fit guy. You know, he was on OC3 last year at the games. Man, that team's just always well-rounded, and he stepped in for who did he step in for?
Colin Carty.
Yeah. So Colin was a staple of that team for the last couple of years, and Luke, I mean, Colin's super fit, but having Luke on there last year, it made the men a little bit more well-rounded. So pretty cool to see him out here giving it a shot as an individual.
So Luke Schaefer needs to make up ground on Josh Miller. He has 63 points to make up. Doesn't have to do that all in one event, but Miller had a very strong performance in that last heat. Didn't win the last heat. The time to beat is 16:32. If Luke Schaefer can win this event, he can creep closer to Miller and keep him within striking distance as we head into the latter part of the day and into Sunday.
And unofficially, right now, Miller's in 4th based on the 2 previous heats. So if he gets to that overall lead, that's 20 points he's guaranteed to pick up on Miller.
Connor Duddy is your leader in this heat right now, and Duddy in line to receive an invite or qualification spot through the Open. He finished 31st, but because of some of the backfill processes that are going to be going on, I'm assuming, Rich, you're going to decline your invite to.
Yeah, I just declined that the other day. So, team it is for me. That's home.
And it's nice because it'll be Connor's 2nd CrossFit Games appearance. Remember, he was effectively the last guy in last year because remember when Roman's visa issues couldn't go through, the invite at Dubai eventually got passed down to Conor, and he basically found out 2 weeks before the games that he was going to Madison. So this time he gets a little bit more time to prepare and actually put his best foot, put his best foot forward.
Schaefer and Duddy, the first two men, back to the assault bike. They'll have to complete 50 calories here, and this is where this thing really starts to hurt.
Yeah, and Assault Fitness, I guess, wanted to punish us a little bit more and put the fan guard on there. So there's no air moving. And so you get, in this point, you get a little claustrophobic.
That was the one thing about that thing that just made you feel okay on it.
I know, right? Like, people are like, oh, I love the fan guard. No, I need some air moving. You know, it's a little muggy. It's raining outside. It's uncharacteristically warm here right now, so it's 60 plus outside, I think, and that's not fun when it's just sticky. And so there's no air moving. The machine's great, but yeah, that fan guard was just wasn't my call, that's for sure.
I don't know how you could make that thing worse, and they managed to do it.
They figured it out. Yeah, I need that fan guard. Like I said, I sweat a lot, and I need just need the air moving, or else I get a little claustrophobic.
Cole Grayshaber, who had the lead early on in this heat, he is now in third place. Again, a rep for every 10 calories. So at the 160 mark, that's when they move on to the final 25 Burpee Box Get Overs. And it's Conor Duddy in the middle of your screen, who is your leader. He took the lead on the bar muscle ups, and he has held it ever since.
Seeing Panchik creep in there a little bit. We'll see if those, if he's in striking distance. Those burpees were pretty quick. Because you don't want to push on those last 25 Burpee Box Get Over. That's the worst. Like, Scott being close enough that I had to do those Burpee Box Get Overs fast. I wasn't real happy about that. We were actually talking about that earlier. You know, coming off the Burpee Box Get Over and he ran to the bike, I wanted to stick something in his spokes.
Will Scott have any extra individual training that he will have to do now as you?
Yeah, I know, right? A little punishment. Yeah. So we did some worm stuff this morning. Everybody was stressed about, you know, like, hey, we got the team together. Because we've only really used the worm with the four of us once before. So we did a couple workouts this morning, and so we were talking about this last one. I was like, Scott, you in? He's like, if I don't have to, I'm not in. And then it was just me and Josh. And Josh looked at him. He's like, don't leave me out there by myself. So this next one's going to hurt, though.
Conor Duddy maintains his lead. 25 reps to go. Time to beat is 16:32.78 seconds. That belongs to Colton Mertens. Now Duddy working through his final 25 reps as Luke Schaefer is there as well.
Interesting to see Duddy visibly picked up the pace on his burpees once Luke got there.
Impressive.
I think he was just kind of biding his time, making sure he piled up some reps but didn't burn out, waiting for the next athlete to show up.
Yeah, you kind of, at this point, I mean, you got to know what's going on in the previous heats, but you really just want to, if you're a couple reps ahead, just kind of match that pace if this is the people you need to beat. But, you know, because we didn't restructure, this is basically based off of their open placement from our qualifier. So you don't, I mean, you know who you're competing against, but you don't really know who you're competing against. So
10 reps to go for Duddy. The time to beat 16:32.78. It was Matt Hewitt that belongs to him. Colton Mertens had the prior top time. But Duddy on pace to smash that right now. 185, that's the magic number. And Duddy only 7 away from that. He's on the right side of your screen. Luke Schaefer is on the left. He is in second place, although his score is not on the ribbon. 4 reps to go for Duddy. And Conor Duddy getting close to your time, Rich. Your time's still going to stand at 15:27, but that's impressive for Conor Duddy on his final rep. And he will get across the finish line and have the new time to beat 15:35.04 seconds.
That's the feeling that you expect to see finishing that workout. That's how I felt finishing the workout. So
Luke Schaefer is your leader on the floor. He only has 2 reps remaining, and Spencer Panchik is in a group with Marquand Jones, Drew Wayman, and then Dylan Pettit is trying to push the pace there. So Schaefer's in 16:02.73 seconds. So right now, that's the second best time that we've seen.
And even though he didn't get the event win, and it's not the top time so far, he'll definitely pick up some precious points on Josh Miller there.
Now he just needs some more people to get between himself and Miller to make that gain as big as possible.
Right now he's cheering on Ben Smith, Cole, Drew. He's hoping all of those guys kind of wedge in between them.
Less than 90 seconds to go before we hit the time cap. And now Ben Smith is across the finish line, and he will take third in the heat. Here comes Drew Wayman and Cole Grayshaber. They are in.
Strong push from Ben there on the backside. He was like 6th or 7th going into the bike.
Definitely made up some ground there on the backside, but that's Ben Smith.
Yep.
Chasing, moving, catching up there at the end.
Marquand Jones, Spencer Panchik, Dylan Pettit, all on the competition floor as Marquand Jones is in. So Dylan Pettit, the only man left. You take a look at Marquand Jones, who will be cheering on his Clemson Tigers on Monday night. Less than 30 to go here for Dylan Pettit. He's got 17 reps left, according to his score. Now 16. Looking like only one man in this heat will fail to finish inside the 18-minute time cap. So heat 3 is done, and it's Conor Duddy at 15:35.04, just 8 seconds slower than you.
Well, they've done a little bit different than we had the last couple of days. So strong time. You know, that's kind of what we were hoping for. Most people would finish, and I feel like we had a good show right there.
And once again, we saw Conor Duddy, you know, kind of take control of that workout through the meat and potatoes of it, the bar muscle ups into the GHDs. But most impressively, you know, despite being pretty relatively low key on the bike, he really picked up the pace on those final burpee box jump overs, and it gives him the best time so far.
And let's send it down to Roy McKernan, who is with Conor Duddy.
Conor, you finished in the 15:30s. It wasn't until about 17:30 though that you could even sign your scorecard. How you feeling, buddy?
That was hard. That was really hard. The burpee at the end, like I just knew I had to keep going or pass out. So I just kept going.
And what were your expectations for this one? Did you know that you would do well?
Well, I know I like burpees and bar muscle ups. I had no idea how the bike GHD would feel, and I handled it really well, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, really, really well. Congratulations on a fantastic finish.
Thank you,
15:35.04 seconds for Conor Duddy. He now sits atop the standings for this event. Luke Schaefer will take second, followed by Drew Wayman, and then Cole Grayshaber with a solid performance. He led early. He'll take fourth place in the event with one heat remaining here in event 4. We have one more event remaining today. 7 total events for this competition, and one more look at event number 4, the up and back chipper. And this one is playing out the same pretty much for every heat.
Yep.
Early on, pretty jam-packed in the front, but then at the turn, that's what makes a difference.
Yeah, it's really kind of 3 parts. The early part, you just don't burn out, really make a push towards the middle, and then hold on for dear life towards the end. And an athlete I think can really do that well is Alexander Caron. You know, I mentioned earlier today that he's coming off of a knee injury, but some of the things he really excelled at, some of the assault bike sprints, like bar-facing burpees we saw the year he qualified, he had one of the best times in regionals. And I think this is a good opportunity for him, absent of any real technique with the legs, to really showcase the capacity that got him to the games just a few years ago.
6 men in this 4th and final heat. Alexander Caron will be at the far end of the floor. He is in lane 8. Chandler Smith right now, although he has already qualified for the CrossFit Games, he is in 2nd place overall, trailing Josh Miller by about 66 points. I'll make that 36 points, 38 points coming into this event. Chandler Smith was flirting with a false start there, but got himself back across the finish line on the right side before things started. The 15:35.04, that is the mark all these men are gunning for, as Conor Duddy put that up in the heat that we just watched. And we are underway with the 25 Burpee Box Get Overs. Josh Miller, your overall leader coming into this event with 266 points. Chandler Smith on the left side of your screen. He sits in second at 228, and Alexander Caron at 208. But both Smith and Caron have already qualified for the CrossFit Games through the Open.
Actually, every athlete in this heat is already qualified through the Open, at least as far as the top 20. Tetlow, Cornier, Christoffel, Adler, all of them already booked their games tickets, so this is all pretty much practice for them in terms of figuring out the best ways to execute and kind of get all of the competition jitters out of the way before they step onto the big stage come later this year.
Luke Schaefer will be paying close attention to this event, so he's the guy who is trying to earn the invite along with Josh Miller, who are in the top 5 in the overall standings. Luke Schaefer had a solid performance in that last event. If every man in this heat can beat Josh Miller's time, that would be great news for Luke Schaefer as he looks to carve into Miller's lead. Luke Schaefer came into this event trailing Miller by 63 points. Sam Cornier working his way up and over. 25 reps here, then on to the assault bike.
He had a really strong start to the morning with an event win in number 3. Kind of kick things off. He was one of the few athletes that we saw go out to an early lead and be able to maintain the entire way. Nice performance from him.
Scott Tetlow is on to the bike. Alexander Caron, and just about every athlete except for Tyler Christoffel onto those 50 calories. Now Christoffel is done and he will move to the bike. So pretty much even for all these athletes through those first 25 Burpee Box Jump Overs. We are about 2 minutes, 24 seconds in unofficially.
You know, we saw Tetlow be the first to the bike. I think workouts like this are really important for the psyche of an athlete. You know, Tetlow's someone who's qualifying through the Open, but as we know, time and time again, there's a big difference from being able to perform at your box under the same conditions that you train in, deciding when you want to do the workout, what you get to eat, how you're sleeping. So I think having at least a handful of strong performances and workouts in this environment against some very stiff competition is really, really important if you're looking to parlay that into a strong performance come game time when the games hit in Madison.
Alexander Caron on the right of your screen, working away on his 50 calories as we are past the 3-minute mark here, about 3 minutes, 14 seconds into this event.
One of the most brutal assault bike workouts I've ever seen. Alexander Caron was a part of at the Brazil CrossFit Championships last year, basically intervals of max effort sprint. Seeing him when he really puts his head down and grind on that bike is something to behold, and he can really tap into one of those dark places. I watched him basically resuscitate himself to life through the crowd and have a strong finish in that workout to kind of close out a really impressive competition.
Well, we cannot see a clock. The athletes can, and that is important for them as they look to properly pace themselves here, approaching the 4-minute mark, 18-minute time cap. The time to beat, 15:35.04 seconds. That belongs to Conor Duddy. So 4:07 and counting in this event. Chandler Smith working through his 50 calories. After these 50 calories, it's the 50 Ghd Sit Ups, as Sam Cornier making no effort to hide the fact that he's trying to copy off someone else's screen.
Unlike your test time in elementary school, it is encouraged to look left or right and see what your neighbor's doing. It is good strategy.
Jeffrey Adler is done, and he's on to the GHDs, as is Alexander Caron. Here comes Scott Tetlow. Chandler Smith is done as well. That leaves Cornier and Christoffel, the only 2 men left on the assault bike. Almost 5 minutes gone by here in the 4th and final heat of event 4, the second event of 3 that these individuals will do here on day number 2. And as Tommy mentioned, all the athletes in this heat have already qualified for the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, but again, I think all of them are kind of here for varying reasons. Obviously, someone like Conor trying to get, bounce back from injury. Jeffrey Adler trying to kind of parlay his performance in the open to really becoming one of those front runner guys to emerge as a top shelf games athlete. And you have athletes like Christoffel and Tetlow who qualified for their very first CrossFit Games trying to get, their competitive legs underneath them and really dial in, strategy and performance. And then I think Cornier is a guy who, he was in the top 10 after 2 events last year at the Games and then really had a tough time in the ruck and just a couple of events later was cut. So I think he's really got a chip on his shoulder in terms of trying to prove that he's got a lot more to give at the Games level, and performing well in this type of environment, is a part of that.
So Scott Tetlow and Alexander Caron are the first men done with their GHDs, and now the 25 bar muscle ups. And in the prior heats, this is where we've started to see the athletes really separate themselves. Tetlow fails his first rep. Caron to work right behind him. Chandler Smith is also on to his 25 bar muscle ups. He's on the left side of your screen.
And just to kind of give you an idea of the talent that's in this heat, pretty much all 3 heats, the first athlete to the bar muscle ups got there at about 7 minutes. 2 athletes here got there by 6:30, so they're already a decent amount ahead of the paces that we've seen set in the previous heats.
15:35.04. That's the top time from Conor Duddy, and to put that in perspective, the time that Rich Froning put up earlier today was 15:27. So impressive stuff from Conor Duddy as Scott Tetlow continues to work on his bar muscle ups.
You can kind of see the contrast between him in the front and Alexander Caron in the back. Tetlow really kind of shorting the momentum he gets from the kip, turning over a little bit early, kind of doing that chicken wing, not allowing his hips and feet to rise all the way to the bar to get the most out of that kip swing, whereas Alexander Caron right behind him and some of the other athletes really staying patient in that kip swing and that pull. And you can see just how that manifests itself. Tetlow gets a no rep there.
Chandler Smith trying to catch up with Tetlow and Caron. 25 reps here, then it's back for 50 more on the GHD, and Chandler Smith is done, and he is in the lead. 8 minutes, 24 seconds unofficially gone by here, and Chandler Smith all by himself now in front.
I think this is the kind of performance we've been waiting for from Chandler, especially coming into this last part of the workout where we talk about how much of a suffer fest it is and how much Rich says it is about just putting your head down and grinding. I mean, you talk about suffering, being the captain of the U.S. Army wrestling team at West Point. He knows a thing or two about suffering. Those wrestlers, man, they can really put their head down and grind, and it'll be exciting to see if Chandler can do that here.
Jeffrey Adler is also onto the GHDs. Alexander Caron and Scott Tetlow there as well. 4 men on the GHDs, 2 left on the bar muscle ups. Cornier and Christoffel in the back. Cornier's on his haunches, now just getting up and moving back to the pull-up bar, and Christoffel is next to him. But it's Chandler Smith on the left of your screen who is the leader. 9 minutes, 22 seconds gone by here. The time to beat, once again, 15:35.04 seconds. And if all of these men can get inside of 17:06, that would be a huge help to Luke Schaefer. 17:06 is the time that overall leader Josh Miller put up. Schaefer, the guy right now who would be next in line for the invite to the games, as Chandler Smith continues to work away on his second and final set of 50 GHD sit-ups.
And right now Schaefer's in second, and he's really hoping at most only 1 or 2 guys sneak ahead of him, because remember, the point spread starts to drop a little bit. You go from 5 points separating per placement to 4 points to 3. So if he can hang around in that top 5 where that 5-point separation is, that just increases the gap that he's gaining on Josh Miller.
One final rep for Chandler Smith, and he will move to the assault bike. 10 minutes, 28 seconds gone by here. 50 calories for Chandler Smith. Same story. Chandler Smith takes the lead on the bar muscle-ups and then starts to separate himself, and that is what we have seen play out throughout this event. You think back to the first time we kind of saw Chandler Smith in competition, it was that regional appearance in 2016. It was the deadlift event where he just ripped that barbell off the ground, and at that point you realize, okay, this kid is for real. And then his military duty sort of kept him out of competition for a while, but it was great to see him back last year.
Yeah, it was one of those moments like that was really special, especially given the fact that in that moment, he still technically lost, right? He was chasing down Ben Smith, you know, the reigning CrossFit Games champion at that time in that workout, and it looked like Ben was running away with it. Chandler rips through the deadlifts. The crowd goes wild. It was one of the highlights of regionals. And then, you know, everybody kind of realized that he had almost what it took. It's just a matter of time. Like you said, military obligations, losing part of his finger from a tank accident. You know, you don't hear that every day.
Chandler Smith is your leader. Jeffrey Adler, Scott Tetlow, and Alexander Caron all on the assault bike with him. And Smith is just ticking away those calories as we are past the 12-minute mark. 12 minutes, 6 seconds gone by here. About 3.5 minutes to go before we hit the time to beat that belongs to Conor Duddy.
Conor got to the box somewhere in between 13:30, 13:45. So they're going to be right close around the pace that he held. And remember, Conor actually really sped up once he got to the burpee box jump overs. That was kind of the crux of his top performance. I think that's where we see the separation, right? Everybody kind of takes control of their heat around the bar muscle-ups and the GHDs. And then the separator for overall is the pain cave that you go into at the end.
And Chandler is so far away from his other competitors that he doesn't have the luxury of being able to see their screens. Alexander Caron.
You know, I think
Scott Tetlow.
I think at this point it doesn't really matter. You can kind of see the difference in the posture on the bike. Everybody's head down a little bit, kind of eyes closed, almost trying not to focus too much on the pace that they're keeping. For Chandler at this point, I think he's just trying to kind of stick into his own world and hold on for as long as he can.
.5 minutes gone by, 13:35 to be exact, and counting as Chandler Smith is in his final 4 calories. His judge's hand in the air. He maintains his lead on the assault bike. He is behind Conor Duddy's pace right now. And Chandler Smith is done at the 13:56 mark. 25 burpee box get overs between Chandler Smith and a heat win here. He's going to have to really do some work in order to catch Conor Duddy's time of 15:34.04 seconds. And now Alexander Caron getting to his burpee box overs. He's on the right side of your screen.
He's got about a 2-rep lead over Caron right now. But I'll be honest, Caron looks a little bit better, at least in the burpee portion.
Jeffrey Adler in the middle of your screen is in 3rd place right now in this heat. 14 minutes, 37 seconds have gone by. If your screen is big enough, you can see the clock in the upper left-hand portion. Chandler Smith continuing to lead here. Built that lead on the Ghd on the bar muscle ups, and then increased it on his second set of Ghd sit ups.
And seeing the pace here of all these athletes on the burpees just kind of makes what Conor Duddy did on that final set of 25 that much more impressive. He flew through those final 25.
15:30 right now has passed. That means Connor Duddy's going to win the event. So he'll lock up 100 points as he looks to move himself up the standings. 5 reps to go for Chandler Smith. Now 3 to go. We are at the 16-minute mark. And Chandler Smith is in 16:11 unofficially.
Still should be a strong finish, maybe top 3, top 4 for the event.
Now Alexander Caron is down to his final 2 reps. 90 seconds to go before we hit the 18-minute time cap. Caron is across. Tetlow and Adler fighting for 3rd place in this heat. Five reps to go for Jeffrey Adler. He's in the middle of your screen. Scott Tetlow is on the right, and Samuel Cornier is in the black shirt. Here comes Tyler Christoffel. Final 2 reps for Adler as we have 40 seconds to go before we hit the 18-minute time cap. So Adler is in, and he'll take 3rd place in the heat. But Tetlow is your leader on the floor. He has 3 reps to go and about 20 seconds before we hit the 18-minute time cap. Now 2 reps. This is his final one. Tetlow is across. 10 seconds to go before we hit the 18-minute time cap. And that is the 18-minute time cap. Chandler Smith will take the heat, 16 minutes, 11 seconds unofficially, but it's Connor Duddy who's going to win the event with a time of 15 minutes, 35.04 seconds.
Strong performance from Chandler Smith. Even though he's not competing for a game spot this weekend, still one of those events that you can kind of go back when you revisit the weekend and be really proud of. Once again, he took control during the bar muscle up portion of the workout. Made relatively easy work of those GHDs. He had a nice cushion at that point. And, you know, always the ham, you know, plays it up for the camera a little bit on the bike and holds on for the final set of burpees to get the heat win.
Down to Rory McKernan, who is with Chandler Smith.
Hey, Chandler, you were on fire for the first set of burpees. The last ones look a little bit different. What did it feel like when you got back for the end of that event?
It felt like I was a fire that had exhausted its fuel source. It's like it's the end of the night when you're out with your boys and the campfire's dying, and you know that you got to keep it going because it's not time to go to bed yet. That was my body.
That is the best description that I've ever heard of the end of an event.
I've been saving that metaphor for years, so I'm glad I got to use it.
Thank you for sharing it with us here. Now, a lot of these gentlemen in this heat already qualified for the CrossFit Games, yourself included. So what's motivating you for the competition here?
Right, I'm here. The U.S. Army Warrior Fitness Team let me come out here, so I got the team of folks with me at Fort Knox. So I'm representing the whole U.S. Army, the military. So like again, I say this every time, but I'm privileged enough to where this is my job. I get to come and train and connect with civilians and folks all over the world, but like they're actually putting themselves in danger a little bit more frequently than I am. So like knowing that there's people who are having to work that hard and I'm getting off this easy makes it to where I want to make this hard to make it worth it.
Thank you so much. Any fans of the U.S. military in the house? Give it up for Chandler Smith as well. Congratulations, fantastic finish.
Chandler Smith takes the 4th and final heat with a time of 16:12.69 seconds officially, and Alexander Caron finishes in 2nd as he and Smith, the only 2 men in that heat, to go inside 17 minutes. Let's go back down to Roy McKernan, who is with Rich Froning.
All right, thanks, Sean. I'm here with Rich, obviously, and we had to ask you, lots of stuff going on. One of the actual sponsors here is your farm. I'm like, when on earth does a guy like you have time to make a farm? What's this all about?
Well, you know, we kind of, it started out really small. It was my buddy that I grew up with, my best friend since we were probably 6 or 7, and also my neighbor. We were like, hey, let's start doing some farming, get some, you know, originally we actually talked about cattle. We started doing a little research on bison, how incredible they are, how just resilient they are, and it just made a little bit more sense. And everybody has cattle, not many people have bison, so, you know, we kind of were like, hey, let's try this out, and we'll start super small, and we were just going to have a couple, you know, couple head in our herd, and it's kind of grown from there, and you know, we're starting to do some jerky stuff and some bison bites, and the herd will grow this spring, pretty big. So really looking forward to it. But yeah, not a ton of time, but it was kind of like, hey, I want, you know, growing up, we didn't have a working farm at all, but we had chores, and I want my kids to have something to do and something to take care of and something we can do together and outside of fitness, outside of CrossFit. And so I'm really looking forward to having that and being able to share that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've gotten to see that actually with the kids, like tossing the bread, getting to feed them. And so right now you said there's jerky. That actually dropped, I think, this week, right, at this event. Yeah. So eventually, like, can I buy a buffalo?
You can buy it, yeah, buffalo, bison, either one. It's
oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's, you know, you need to read the book American Buffalo by Steve Rinella, but it's the words are interchangeable. Everybody wants to argue about the scientific term is bison, but I've really nerded out on them since we've started doing it.
You said the word book, you know?
I know, right? Lots of pictures though. But yeah, when early settlers came over, they called them buffalo because that's what they'd seen. And so it's interchangeable, but the correct term is bison, but who cares?
You've just been educated by Rich Froning.
Knowledge bombs.
Before I let you go, let's do a little bit update. We've had basically the ruck run, your good dudes thing on Friday night, and now we're halfway through the second day of competition. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's been incredible. You know, we had an incredible team. Yourself was part of that huge planning of this. We have, you know, our Mayhem for Mustard Seed team and CrossFit Mayhem members that have come out. We had a couple other local gyms help with the trail. Like, to see it all come together has been awesome. You know, there's some minor things going on behind the scenes, but to see this event and how incredible the crowd is and how incredible just how professional it looks, I'm proud of everybody that's done a great job. So.
And with the programming, rubbers meeting the road, and you're convinced still that we're going to send the right person to the games?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a pretty grueling test, a pretty well-rounded test so far. You know, there's still a couple more events to see, but I feel like at the end of this thing, we'll have the right person up there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ro. Here's where we stand now.
Yeah, great.
After 4 events, Josh Miller hangs on to the overall lead. Luke Schaefer narrows the gap. Those two vying for the invite to the CrossFit Games. Drew Wayman in the mix as well, but he'll need to make up some ground here over the next few events.
Yeah, we talked about the point spread there. Josh Miller had about a 63-point lead over Luke Schaefer. Luke made up considerable ground in that last event.
The 2020 Mayhem Classic is brought to you by Reebok. Fade into greatness. By Defiance Fuel. Supercharge your performance. And by Rogue. We're going to step aside for a couple of minutes, take a quick break. We'll be back with coverage of women's event 4, so stay with us here at the 2020 Mayhem Classic.